What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. I'm not alone today. I got Mr. Colred plays Raid Shadow Legends here with me. We're going to talk some free-to-play stuff. Hopefully you guys are interested in that. Make sure you guys check out Colred's channel. He does a bunch of free-to-play stuff. He's really knowledgeable if you guys are looking for strategies on how to play the game more free-to-play. So Colred, welcome back to the channel, man. You got a couple words to say to the folks here?
Yeah, thank you to all of you for watching. Thanks for having me on the channel, Boozer. Last time was a lot of fun. I can talk free to play with you for hours, my friend. It is a very fun conversation for me. So yeah, thanks for having me back on the channel, and I hope we have an interesting conversation today.
All right, 100%. So we're just going to go down this free-to-play rabbit hole here. So first question I actually want to ask you was kind of like when you first started out playing Raid, did you actually have, not even when you first started playing Raid, but any instance in Raid where you actually felt the urge to spend money was so strong that you almost spent money in this game? Like maybe you were chasing like, you know, that special champion in that 10x event that you were just like, oh, I need one more shard to pull just to get this champion, whether it be like Duchess or Kymar or something. I know some people that went totally crazy and blew up their accounts for champions like that during those events. So have you ever had an experience like that before?
It's funny. I still need a Kymar too and a Duchess. Would say yes. To a low level, like a standard level, free to play life means constantly resisting the urge to spend, right? Over time, it does get easier to some extent because you've invested in the free to play life and it means something to you. But I would say there have been 2 times in my account's life where I've been most interested in spending or tempted to spend. And I haven't, but I've been tempted to. And the first was early in my experience, like you said, at the beginning of Raid. And one of the reasons is I have a philosophy that if I play a game for a certain number of hours, I like to chip in and, you know, just give the developers some money to support the game. And so after, you know, the first 2 weeks of Raid or so, I was playing a lot and I was like, I should probably give them some money. But at that particular time, I held off for a couple of reasons. One of which is I was trying to reduce my overall spending in games. I had spent a lot of money that year in games. And so I was thinking to myself, I want a free to play game. And I kind of was experimenting with Raid to see if it could be that game. So I didn't even buy the starter pack, which normally I would do to kind of support the developers. And then it just became a thing where it was like, okay, well, now I'm free to play. So now I'm sticking free to play. And through the mid game, it wasn't particularly hard. I will say that somebody probably finds the mid game, like some people probably find the mid game the place where they want to spend, because you hit that wall and then you don't, you know, it's easier to spend your way through it than grind your way through it. But for me, I had the opposite kind of reaction. I got to the grind and I was like, oh, no, you're not going to stop me. You know, like I'm going to beat you free to play.
100%.
And so that actually was when I got really committed to free to play. So the second time I was tempted to spend was actually just recently. At the end of 2024, I was kind of reassessing my place as a content creator and thinking to myself, I've played free to play for 3 years and 8 or 9 months. Maybe I could start spending now.
Oh my.
Because now it would be beneficial to my content creation to have access to more resources and potentially, I mean, I've got an 8-month-old baby boy at home, you know, like I have a lot of things to spend my time on. And in talking to Ash just a few months ago during a collab, he said the reason he spends is to get his time back. You know, like by spending, he doesn't have to spend as many hours a day in game. So at the end of the year, I was thinking, do I want to turn 2025 into a spending year? And ultimately I was like, no, I can't do it. I'm a free to player for life in Raid, and that's just the way it's going to be.
That's so funny. So first, I want to make sure that the viewers are watching that we hold obviously no any kind of judgment on people that spend money. You guys want to play the game as you were. You guys play the game exactly as you want. It's a play style more than anything, guys. But it's funny that you mentioned that you wanted to be a spender in 2025. But one of the biggest topics right now is actually we have a couple content creators actually trying to not spend in 2025. Yes. Do you have? So I want to preface that. So first, it's actually Ash and Drock, so 2 big content creators and big spenders in Raid, basically saying that they're going to start 2025 without spending any money at all. I already
Yeah.
have a video kind of commenting on that, but I would love to hear what you have to say about that. And if you can offer maybe some strategies or tips to these guys, or even potential spenders that are watching right now that are looking to maybe cut back for maybe 2025, or maybe reassess how they want to spend their money. Do you have any tips for these types of players?
So that's an interesting question. In fact, there's a lot there, right? There's a lot to potentially talk about. So the first thing I'll say is just to answer the initial question, like, do I have anything to say about this? It's like, yeah, great, do it. If you have an opportunity to try out free to play life, to spend a little bit less and see if you still enjoy the game, you can only benefit from it. Like, maybe you try it for a month and you hate it, and then you go back to spending, but at least that month you didn't spend so much money, right? And so maybe you can spend that money on something else or save it, whatever. I mean, I think that spenders, like you said, spending is an approach to the game. Free to play is an approach to the game. There's no like real ethical judgment that I'm making here. I like the challenge of it. I like
Yep.
encouraging players to spend in healthier ways in the game. So if they want to reduce their spending, I want to offer strategies that can help them still succeed while spending less. And so I would say, yeah, great. It's great that they're doing it. And I think it's great that they are telling the public that they're doing it, because I
It
think we
holds them
all look at
accountable.
content.
It
Yeah,
holds them more
yeah.
accountable.
Hold them accountable. But also I think, there is a I think there is a legitimate criticism sometimes of content creators that we encourage our
Oh,
viewers to spend,
yeah,
especially through things like shard pull videos and whatever.
that's a good
And I,
point.
I think that is a legitimate criticism. There's
Mhm.
there's a balance to be struck there. But so I think it's great to just kind of provide a little bit of like some counter pressure and say, hey, sometimes even the spending content creators can really encourage you to spend in healthier ways. So I think it's all good. As far as advice, I would say if you are used to being a spender and you want to go free to play, the biggest hurdle isn't going to be your game knowledge or your like building good habits. Like, you're probably already a pretty good player if you've been playing this long. The biggest challenge is going to be what happens when you lose. Right? What happens when you do that shard pull event and it
Yeah.
doesn't work out for you? What
Mm.
happens when there's a big event and a new cool champion and you never get that champion? Can you stay disciplined enough to say, I'm going to be happy with the loss and just accept that I'm not going to get that shiny new thing? And if you can do that, then you can be successful as a free to play player because you already have the knowledge. Right. But if you can't, if emotionally it just becomes so frustrating to you to watch that new champion pass you by, then you're going to go back to spending, because that's the only way to guarantee that you get all of those really cool champions.
That's a really interesting point, actually. Like, okay, I want to comment what you said about Drock and Ash. First of all, I
Sure.
totally agree. It's a good thing, and if they can, maybe influence others to maybe pull back spending, reevaluate themselves, great, thumbs up, right? Even if they
Yeah.
don't succeed. Second thing that you said is how the whole FOMO and just being disciplined about everything and not just falling back into it. I think 100% this is what the free to play lifestyle is like, if you can't properly allocate your resources and preserve those resources in your greatest hour of need when you totally botch whatever your events and
Right.
have just a bad day, you need to survive those kind of situations. And I do mention that there's a lot of people that can be free to play, good free to play for like 3 months, 6 months, a year, but to do it for years and not have that one meltdown day where you just destroy your account for an event or something, or a champion or whatever. It's really tough, and it does take a certain amount of discipline to do so. Obviously, like, you're your own critic at the end of the day. No one's
Yeah.
critiquing you or watching you and how you play this game. So, you obviously be your hardest judge, right? So it's actually really interesting to know. But for Drock and Ash to kind of put it out there into the internet, now we're all interested in watching them and how they will actually perform. So it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
And it's an interesting thing to me specifically, because I think these two guys are very different as spenders and as content creators. First of all, we know Drock can do very well as a free to play player because he went and dominated the HH Challenge last year. He came in third out of all the content creators. I was battling him. I've only been a free-to-play player, and I was battling with him neck and neck to the last day. So we know he can do it, but his content is specifically around endgame arena. So even though I know he has the skill and the discipline and he enjoys the free-to-play, does it still work for his channel? Now, Ash, I think, has never really done the free to play. I don't think he's ever done a free to play series or whatever. So this would be a completely new territory for him. And I think if he stopped spending, he would probably still be okay because he has such an advanced account and he's not really just focused on end game stuff. He could still do all his champion guides and all that stuff. So I don't think it would be as big a hit to his channel, but I don't know how he's going to feel about free to play. So I'm really interested in seeing what happens with both of these guys. I wish them the best of luck with January. You know, their dry January, I think they're calling it. And I think it's absolutely great for the community to see it.
Yeah, personally, I think it's going to be extremely difficult. Just from experience watching like others high spenders going cold turkey or greatly reducing. I'm gonna say if I were a Vegas bookie, I would offer some pretty good return on some of these bets because I think it'd be very difficult for these guys just because their playstyle is completely spender playstyle, and for them to go basically a full turnaround to play to free to play, it's going to be extremely difficult. And I just don't think it fits their lifestyle. I don't think they can allocate the amount of time into the game. Real life and stuff obviously happening.
I know Ash does not want to. Yeah. He doesn't want to.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be really hard because they're not going to be accustomed to having the same amount of resources that they're used to have when they're expending money, right? So, and now we have, this new Alice event coming, and, there's going to be pinpoint gear guys, pinpoint PvP endgame guys. So, they're gonna, I want to see them succeed. This will be tough. It'll be tough. But I would love.
I'll say this though.
I'd love to see it.
I would love to see it too, but I will say this: you don't have to go from spending whatever you're spending $1,000 a month to zero in order to get value out of a dry January.
Yep.
Like if you go from spending $1,000 a month to $500 a month or $300 a month, that's a huge change, and it may just become that you have to be more selective with where you spend your money. And then you have to apply more free-to-play philosophies to your resources in order to get the same success that you were previously getting out of your wallet. And that's okay. That's a good thing. That's a way to challenge yourself and potentially grow your skill set and simultaneously maybe save a little bit of money or encourage other people to save money. So I don't think that they have to spend $0 in order for it to be a successful experiment, but I would like to see them stay committed to spending some lower amount for the duration of the entire month. And I believe in these two guys. They're both very successful, capable individuals. So, yeah. They're smart. I think they can do it. What will they spend $0? I don't know, but will they spend less? I'm almost certain they will.
Yeah. Actually, Cold Brew actually had a video responding to Drock's dry January video, and he actually showed how much he was spending in the last year or so. And I was actually kind of surprised at how much Cold Brew is spending, because Cold Brew is, he's a very endgame account. He's an endgame clan, very super progressive account. He's been a content creator for years, one of the OGs, and I think he was only spending about $50 a month. And some of that money was actually going towards shard pulls, which he basically just does for content. So a lot of he's just basically not really spending in this game. So it's actually kind of interesting. And I'm sure he plays at a super end game level as well. So it's actually interesting. And he probably was a big spender at one point, but he definitely cut down for sure if he's only spending $50 a month.
And I think Nubs had a similar experience where maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he spent several $1,000s and then he pulled all the way back to almost nothing per month. And so, he kind of built his account and then was like, I don't need to spend this much money, and backed off. And honestly, I think that's a similar experience that I've heard from a lot of people in my community, which is one of the reasons that they watch me is not because they started as free to play, but because they started as spenders and they wanted to spend less, or they just stopped spending and they wanted to keep playing. And so now they're interested in my channel because everything that I do on my channel, you can do without money, right? You don't have to spend any money to do what I do. And so whether you've spent on your account or not, if you want to be successful and spend less, you and I are people to go and watch, even if you're not technically a free-to-play player.
100%. So yeah, definitely like some of the just strategies and mindset, it can help spenders and of course free to play players as well.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's segue a little bit into the sale of Plarium and how Plarium currently is owned by Aristocrat. Aristocrat, if you guys don't know, is a basically they're a gambling machine company with segments, basically diversified portfolios. They have businesses in different areas. One of them is Plarium, and Plarium, basically operates under Aristocrat, right? So they are being sold from Aristocrat to this company called MTG. It's a media group. So from my knowledge, they're more, like I said, media, television based and all that. And they're probably more of an investor group. So they're just investing into Plarium. Whereas Aristocrat probably had more, hands in the cookie jar, controlling Plarium with maybe, certain casino tactics or strategies, right? So I'm interested to hear what you think future spenders or spending habits of spenders would be like under maybe completely different management. I think it's kind of up in the clouds right now, whether it be better or worse. Maybe the packs get better or worse. Maybe they start offering more stuff. Who knows, right? Or maybe Plarium starts having more agency and not having aristocrat overlords watching over them, but instead passive investors. So I want to see I want to hear your take on all of that and the sale and transition of Raid and Plarium moving on from Aristocrat.
Sure. I just actually did a video on my channel where I did a deep dive into all of this. So this is a topic that I'm very familiar with right now. And it's interesting in seeing sort of some of these dynamics play out over time, because there are bits and pieces of information we've gotten over the years about how Aristocrat, like you said, puts its hand in the cookie jars and is controlling and being the overlords of Plarium.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've often felt like there are sort of two, like there's a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with Plarium. Like they try to be really nice to us, and then as soon as they're nice to us, they're like, give us money, give us money, give us money, right? And they're really mean all of a sudden. And they keep flipping back and forth between these two personalities. And my working theory has been that Plarium is a game developer and they like gamers. And Aristocrat is a casino company and they think of gamers as dollar bill signs. They don't care about us at all. They don't think of us as people. And so those two forces have been playing a tug of war over the last 6 years in Raid. But because Aristocrat's the boss, they frequently win. So I think that Plarium being released from the shackles of this casino company could only be a good thing. I don't think it's going to get worse. There's no way it gets worse. How much better is it going to get? I don't know. I will say that Modern Times Group, which is MTG, the people who are purchasing Plarium, they have a stable of other mobile game development companies. And their previous experience was, like you said, in media, television, and radio. But this particular iteration of MTG is specifically focused on gaming. And so I think a parent company that is focused on gaming should hopefully bring a focus back to the player experience, player retention, growing the player base. Because if you think about it, they just bought a company for $600 million.
Yeah.
They need their flagship title to survive. They can't kill Raid. Raid is the most valuable asset they have from Plarium.
Yep.
Right? So they need this game to get back to a healthy state. And as a result, I don't know that prices are going to significantly change for spenders, but I do think the aggressiveness of the monetization and constantly pushing like events without giving, like, I said they would give us one nice thing and then, be really greedy the next second. I think they're going to give us more nice things and they're going to be greedy less frequently in the coming year once Plarium changes hands. That's my hope. That's my expectation, but we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah. So, Plarium, I believe, changed their CEO maybe like 2.5 years ago. And then ever since then, they mentioned something about profit mode.
Yes. Profit mode.
And profit mode, when they said profit mode, we're entering profit mode or whatever it was. And then we started seeing things like blessings and what was it? Sand Devil, the mythical gear. That was the first kind of like dip into the profit mode. And then now this year, obviously ramping up before the sale of Plarium, they definitely ramped it up with the primal shards. And then obviously all these content drops. Like, Plarium or Aristocrat is probably just wringing out that squeezing that lemon for all its worth just before passing it off to MTG most likely. So
Yeah.
hopefully MTG brings in more they're gonna refine it. They got a well-oiled machine here, right? But they want to make sure that it's running for another 10 years so that they can get their money back. So I'm hoping that they keep it tame, but polish up the game a little bit, improve some of the quality of life, improve some of the things that we've been asking for along the way, just to make the players a little bit more happy. But yeah, we'll see. Like you say, you can't get any worse sometimes.
Well, if you think about it kind of like in a more real world situation, think about buying a used car, right? Like the reason that buying a used car is so fraught is because you don't trust the seller because they know they're getting rid of it. Right? They know they're getting rid of it. So if you're going to sell a car, are you worried about like doing the next oil change or like buying new tires on the car? No. Right? You're selling as is, you're just getting rid of it. You're going to drive that thing as hard as possible and then you're just going to pass it off to somebody else who has to worry about the upkeep. But if you are buying the used car, if you're MTG, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a full systems check, right? And any little problem that could become a big problem in the future, you're going to start to fix because you want this car to last another 100,000 miles. And so I think that's what's going to happen with MTG once they take over Plarium. They're going to take a look at what's going on. And one of the things that they're going to look at is the community. What are the content creators saying? What's the community sentiment around the game right now? And if they see guys like Ash and Drock who aren't spending for the month of January, that should concern them for their new car, right? That's a potential problem that could turn into a more serious one down the line. So I think there has to be a philosophical shift simply because this is the beginning of their investment. They need Raid to be super healthy. And I think you and I would agree, and most people would agree, that the last 6 months to a year have not been healthy in terms of the community sentiment towards how the game has operated. So that has to change. That has to change, or MTG is going to have a very bad investment on their hands.
Yeah, I think the last year or so, they've definitely been jamming a lot of content down our throats and definitely ramping up the ways they can sell and monetize that content. So I think that's kind of what we're kind of seeing. Like, oh, it's all great. We get all these cool fusions. We get all these like Monster Hunter, collabs. We get like Asgard Divide. We get all these cool events, right? But there's a lot. There's a lot going on. We get progressives every week, twice a week sometimes. So it's a lot going on, and it just seems like they're trying to monetize everything. So I'm not too sure how they're gonna are they gonna dial it back? They might just dial it back. And it's funny that you say you are using the used car analogy because my car just died on me. So I'm in the seller mode where I have to sell my car and I have to buy a used car. So I'm looking to buy a used car already. So I'm in that sell mode and the buy mode. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. I got to sell it as is. I don't want to deal with it. It's dead. Take it away. Still a good car. It's just dead right now. So someone can fix it and sell it and use it for cheap. But I have to buy a new car or use a new used car. And then I have to put money into it, make sure it's nice, make sure it's going to last me that 100,000 miles or whatever. It's exactly right. And I think you hit it on the head with MTG. They're definitely going to take care of this investment of theirs. And make sure people are spending, of course, but make sure that they're delivering a good product, right, for years to come. So should be fine. Okay,
should be good.
Yeah, okay.
Hopefully.
All right, so we just covered a bunch of big money topics here, like obviously sale of Plarium, some big Krakens pulling back their spending and stuff like that. So let's dial it down, focus it back down to like the free to play, new player, low spenders. In your opinion, what kind of things should a low spender or a no spender kind of put their money towards? Let's say they have a $10 or $20 budget per month. What kind of items or gears that would really benefit like a newer player if they so choose to spend money, in your opinion?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm not a spender in this game, but I've spent in other games. I do spend in games. I'm not free to play everywhere. And so I think that you can take lessons from a lot of different games. One of the things about gacha games that I think encourages a lot of spending is the gambling components, right? The aspects where RNG heavily factors into what you get out of your money. So probably the best place to spend a little bit of money is where resources are guaranteed, So
Oh,
don't
100%.
spend on shards, don't spend on gear. Spend on things like maybe the monthly gem pass where you know exactly what you're getting for your money.
Yep.
So it's very predictable, but also it doesn't encourage that second purchase, right? Because a lot of times if you buy shards and you miss on your shard pulls, you're just going to want to go and buy more shards. But if you're just buying a forge pass or a seasons pass, or like in other games, I'll buy a season pass. That's a frequently a thing that I'll do to support a game because I'm like, oh, for 20 bucks for 3 months, I can get a seasons pass and I get something out of it and I'm supporting the development company. So I think that's also really predictable and it doesn't encourage me to spend more. I can easily budget that way. So I guess the overarching bit of advice I would give is know who you are as a spender, know your own spending habits, and then go with whatever you think is going to be something that you can stay disciplined with. Because even if you're not a free to play player, if you want to be a low spender, that still requires discipline. So whether that's a monthly budget or just, I'm going to do a renewable subscription or whatever, that's where I would probably say you want to spend. As far as in-game stuff that you want to spend on, I don't know. I think that's different per account and different per player because it depends how you find like what you find emotionally rewarding in the game. But if you're just trying to be disciplined with your spending, I would say go with something predictable.
Yeah, 100%. I love that mentality. I love how you basically just boiled it down. You have to pick something in the game where it gives you guaranteed value, and something like a gem pass. Sorry, something like the monthly gem pack is perfect example of this because you get exactly you know exactly what you're going to get every day, and you're going to get it the next day, next day, next day, and you know what you can do with those gems. Like you said, shards generally are not the best, in my opinion, either. Mainly because you don't get a lot of value out of them unless you're using them for something specific. Like, let's say you're trying to finish a fusion and it's going to take you whatever, ancient shards, or maybe it's a 2x ancient event during a champion chase, during a fusion that you're trying to finish. And these things are going to get you maximum results, regardless of whether you pull legendaries or not out of them. So I could see an argument there. Yes, you mentioned the gear Forge Pass. Forge Pass, I think, is like exceptional value because you get a ton of gear, 5-star, 6-star gear, high rarity. This would take you many tens of thousands of energy to actually farm in like an actual dungeon where you might not actually be progressed in. So for you, like a newer player, this would help, just fill up your gearbox inbox with gear that is usable and preferably in a good set, of course, when you go into the Forge Pass. So I definitely did recommend like something like a Forge Pass as well. And it goes back to what you're saying, that it is a known commodity. You get this, you get the crafting material. You just don't know what pieces of gear you're going to get, but the odds are you're going to get something that's good and usable. So yeah, really good. I really like that mentality where you're going for the guaranteed result. And a lot of that is what the free to play mindset is, right, where you want to get the guaranteed result back as frequently as possible for your resource. In this case, you're spending money. So good. That's really good.
And I do have one thing to add, I guess, because one thing I talk about on my channel, and again, you're talking about free to play mentality, even in your spending, is that there's always a bottleneck on an account, right? There's one thing that is holding the account back from making progress. Sometimes it's your roster. You need some new champions in order to take on the next bit of content. Sometimes it's your gear, right? You don't have the gear, you have the champions, but they're not geared well enough in order for you to progress. Sometimes it's other things like you have the gear, but you don't have the silver to roll it up. So, you're just silver poor all the time. Yeah. Sometimes it's the time, right? Sometimes especially if you're a free to play player, we talked about investing so much time. And if you want to spend in order to alleviate, that pressure, like getting, buying energy or something in order to just cruise through content. Like, so if there's a bottleneck on your account that is really frustrating you, then you might just get the most emotional reward out of buying that particular resource. I find that as a free to play player, my roster is never the bottleneck. It's never the bottleneck. Surprisingly enough, I've never bought a shard, but I have more than enough champions that I could, play with. The bottleneck is often either legendary tomes or silver, like to roll up gear usually. Like those are the two things that bottleneck me. So if I were going to spend money, I would probably, spend money either on legendary tomes or on like gems that would get me energy and legendary tomes through other things. So you know, again, you have to do an assessment of your account, but I think ultimately don't spend on something you already have a surplus of. Like if you have too many champions, don't buy more champions. You know, don't buy more shards.
But champions are fun to
something
get.
else. Champions are fun to get, but they're not going to help. They're not going to help you progress if you don't have the gear for them. You know, focus on gear or focus on energy or whatever it is that's going to help you progress.
Yeah, those are great spending tips, actually. So, you know, like, yeah, we're free to play players, but we have definitely, you know, can still offer some insight into, you know, some of the more, you know, more effective ways of spending your other real life resource of money. Okay.
Because free to players, believe it or not, we don't spend money, but we spend so much time and effort. We are spending something, so we know how to get the most out of our investment. Yeah,
exactly, 100%. Okay, Colred, thank you so much. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. We actually talked a lot about money, free to play approach towards money spending, and some of the big overarching themes and, you know, events that are happening in the game. For example, like player being sold, they're transitioning to another owner. Obviously, the big dry January events that are happening right now. And then we covered a bunch of, you know, tips and tricks for, you know, light spenders or trying to cut back on spending. I think it's really insightful for people to try to take away whether you're spending or free to play, how, you know, there's different mentalities, right? And obviously it's going to depend on what your account really needs at that certain time. And, you know, a bit of self-reflection on yourself definitely goes a long way as well, as you mentioned previously. So anyways, Colred, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, it's a blast. It's awesome to have you here. Once again, guys, make sure you guys, make sure you guys check out Colred's channel. He's free to play guru, like I said, and he has lots of great strategies and videos to help you guys out if you guys are interested in playing more the free to play way. So any final thoughts here, Colred?
No, just the same thought I came in with, which is I always have fun talking to you, especially when we talk free to play stuff. So thanks for having me on the channel, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Colred. Thank you so much. And thank you, viewers, for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Once again, hopefully you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And Colred too.